With Gina.
The news with Gina Grad.
This half brought to you by Scott's Turf Builder and betonline.ag. All right, what do we got, Gina?
Well, we talked the other day about TMZ reporting that the city of Chicago was threatening to sue Jussie Smollett about $130,000 to cover the cost of the investigation. But Mark Geragos is having none of it. He sent a letter to the city saying Smollett will not be intimidated and will sue the city for making false and defamatory statements by suggesting he faked his attack. Geragos insisted that the attack was real and reminded the city that all 16 felony charges were dropped. Meanwhile, Geragos didn't stop there.
He reminded the city.
He threatened to go after Mayor Rahm Emanuel and Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson. It doesn't sound like a direct quote because it wasn't in quotes, but on TMZ it says, and we'll grill them like cheeseburgers. If the city goes through with the lawsuit. Both men were extremely critical of the state's attorney, Kim Foxx, for dropping the charges when she said, Jussie, of course, indeed faked the attack.
Yeah.
They were like grilled cheeseburgers. You kind of griddled them.
Yeah. I talked.
Let Mark know. Or TMZ.
On a pan or a griddle.
Grilled cheese. I got the word in there.
No,
I got unreasonable doubt.
Yeah.
Mark's on with the lawyer, with the Jussie's lawyer.
I take it back.
If you want to listen.
Sorry.
So that ought to be interesting. Yeah, Mark, you can't poke him. It doesn't work well with him. He basically, if he was a football team, if he was on a football team, if he was coaching the New England Patriots, Tom Brady would play both ways. Because he'd go like, we're going to have our best, we're on the offense all the time. And you're like, well, what about when the other team has the ball?
Never you mind.
Still on the offense. So Brady, get out
attacking,
there.
Always attacking.
Yeah. He does not have a defense as an offense. And that's how he works.
Wow.
It'll be interesting.
He's a defense attorney.
Yeah.
Listen, I get endless amounts of crap from people on Twitter. Like, that scumbag, what are you even listening to him for? You will, again.
But still.
Again, I feel with him about some of his cases like I feel about things like ghosts or psychics or aliens or something like that, where you go, I don't buy into that whole alien business. And you talk to one of your mom's nutty friends and you haven't changed your feelings at all. But there are people who study the subject who they'll present you with stuff and you'll go, I still don't think I believe it, but you did made a couple decent points in there.
Could be flat.
And he will do that with just about any case that you don't believe.
This isn't even a partisan question. I was thinking about the show Veep that I love. Could you ever see Geragos switching and working for the government, working for the White House? Because he's so good at the spin and the publicity, and he's just so good at it.
Yeah. I do feel like, in a way, Rudy Giuliani is the East Coast version of him. Spins, loud, no reverse gear. You know what I mean? Like, maybe if Giuliani, maybe if a piano fell on him or something and they had to go to the bullpen or something. But as long as they have the East Coast,
Rudolph
Geragos, they got it.
Okay. Well, sticking with...
Also, I don't... by the way, I don't. Trump and Geragos, I don't think would last 10 seconds. And by the way, in Texas Stadium, if no one was in there, they'd find each other and start arguing.
That'd be great
immediately. Like
I would buy a ticket to that.
I think if you just randomly put Donald Trump in any of the bathrooms in Texas Stadium, and you randomly put Mark Geragos off season and on a Monday, nobody there, and you randomly put Geragos in any of the other 157 bathrooms, within 20 seconds they would find each other on the 50-yard line. They'd be screaming at each other.
Yeah,
the keymaster and the gatekeeper.
And even if I didn't tell them, they'd be completely disoriented. Like, they'd just wake up and they'd be looking at tile, urinal.
We can never get them together.
I don't even know where I am. Eventually they would stumble out. They'd see they were in Texas Stadium. They were like, well, first they wouldn't know what stadium. And they look around, they see the Dallas Star, and they go, oh, okay. And they'd start wandering off toward the star, like the guiding star.
Sure.
And then they'd run into each other, and then they'd have it out, like Terrell Owens.
Makes perfect sense. I can totally see that.
Yeah. Sorry.
Who wouldn't want to see that?
Yeah.
Well, we talked.
The T.O. reference was him taking a knee in one of the Dallas guys are coming up and whacking.
He was at the Niners at the time. He
Yeah.
spiked the ball
Right.
on the star.
Right.
Well, not to be done in their stadium.
No.
So Joe Biden, we talked about the allegations, and he's all sort of confused and befuddled, but no longer. He's not confused and befuddled anymore.
Good.
The former VP and expected presidential candidate for 2020 is addressing the handsy allegations head on, saying it's just who he is, or it is who he was. Joe says he's always thought of politics as a way of connecting with people, and he took that very literally with the handshakes and the hugs and the squeezies and the sniffies. Here's a clip. It's like 3 minutes, but this is a shorter clip, about 45 seconds, of his big mea culpa to the people.
And the boundaries of protecting personal space have been reset. And I get it. I get it. I hear what they're saying. I understand it.
They've been redefined, not reset.
That's my responsibility. My responsibility, and I'll meet it. But I'll always believe governing, quite frankly, life for that matter, is about connecting with people. That won't change, but I will be more mindful and respectful of people's personal space. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
I don't think it's a good thing. I don't have personal space myself, and I've realized that personal space it doesn't really serve you. If somebody's assaulting you or make a sexual advance on you, then that's what they're doing.
Right.
But the personal space, I know a handful of people that have personal space.
Right.
I don't like them personally or their space. And it's a kind of an arrogance. It's kind of an arrogance halo.
Yeah.
It's like something you wear around you. And I realized that I don't have personal space because I was getting the shit kicked out of me by other dudes my age or older my entire life. You start with football, and then you have your friends. Everyone gets you in a headlock and whatever. And I come up, I do it to Sonny all the time. I just come up behind him, and every time I come up behind him, I get him in a headlock, and I start wrestling him.
Attacks out of nowhere.
And Olga hates it. Olga hates because I pick him up by his neck, and I start shaking him and stuff. And I get that guy hard. And I don't want him to feel like he has personal space. I don't know that it benefits anybody. I can feel when people are around me, and I can assess danger, but that's not the same as having a personal space. I do it on the road. I do it on the sidewalk. If I feel like somebody, I also understand, and everyone should understand this. Like when I left the flotation tank, the sensory deprivation play, I just opened the door and walked out on the sidewalk, and there was a nice-looking young lady wearing the goddamn yoga pants who was passing by me, and I was turning the same direction, and there's no one else around. But I gave her...
She blew a whistle.
I stopped. I gave her a little head start, because
Yeah.
I know she's probably not comfortable with the 6'2" guy walking right behind him, and I got a better shot of her taint.
Sure.
But I let her go ahead. And at some point, by the way, she walked about 20 feet and kind of looked over her shoulder, like, where's this guy and how close is he or whatever. So people should have an awareness of other people's, don't have personal space.
It's so funny. I always think of this when we do live shows, we do meet and greets after. Quietly, I always kind of jokingly think to myself, when is somebody going to tell me, like, hey, Gina, that's not cool. I am constantly hugging people if they want a picture next to me, or
I'll tell you anytime you want to hear it.
I always, say something like prom pose, and I'll make them put their arm around me. I joke around because it's fun.
You're overly familiar. It's true.
I
am, but I
hug
like
people
that.
all the time
fun.
after the show.
Yeah.
I always, if some girl or even a guy goes, "Oh, I'm such a huge fan, and you got me through all the whatever," I just hug it out. Like,
me
I don't
too.
care. It makes their day. It's fine with me. Hopefully they brought me some cashews or some other bounty that I can snack on back in my hotel room. But listen, here's the deal. So here's what we have, essentially. We have you can no longer do this, what Biden does. And the reason you can no longer do it is because we have way too many victims. If you were a victim of molestation or incest, sexual assault, or whatever it is, that person feels what's going on around them with Joe Biden's hands on the shoulders much differently than somebody who never experienced that. So we have a large or growing population of those people, and we have no idea who they are. So you can come up behind
look like you or me,
Lynette or you can come up behind Gina or whatever, and you give a shoulder rub, and it's appreciated. You come around someone who's victimized at age 9, you got a problem. They're going to call the police. So you can't tell who's had what done to them, and thus you can't do it anymore because there's an ever-growing populace of victims, and now we're trying to convince the people who weren't actually victimized that they're victims as well, through some sort of just generalized depression or just being born with fallopian tubing or whatever the crime is. You're a victim as well. So we have a group of people who are actual victims who you certainly can't do that to. Then we have an ever-growing group of people who we're trying to convince are victims, and they'll drop a dime on you too. So now, considering that we've successfully had a campaign where we've turned every female into some version of a victim, then no more touching, because it's the victim that will come out and get you. And it's also weird, too, that if you talk to women who don't think of themselves as victims, they'll just tell you, like if you talk to Lynette, like, has this ever happened to you or whatever? She'll go, I don't know. Nothing registers.
Yeah.
It doesn't register. Just like your asswipe neighbor would never register as a racist because you're white. But if you're black, it would register as a race. So if you don't, it doesn't have to register.
Right.
All right. Sorry.
Well, speaking of personal space invaders, Ozzy Osbourne's son Jack was sucker punched Wednesday while sitting outside the Starbucks in Studio City, California.
I have mixed feelings about that.
Well, here's what happened.
Bad.
Oh, and by the way, I know this Starbucks, and I know the homeless person they're talking about, and I 100% believe this happened. So TMZ,
really?
Yes, there's such a quality of life issue on that corner on Ventura. TMZ reports that he had his back to the street when a man who appeared to be homeless approached and punched him on the right side of his head. Jack stood up and threw his coffee at the guy. He ran off. Police apprehended the attacker and then tased him.
I would never throw $6 worth of beverage at anybody.
Waste good
it's
coffee.
like whenever you see those guys at the stadium chucking their beer at the other opposing player, I'm like, $14 and 2 beer minimum. That cuts you off after the third quarter. Where are you going?
You're not going to reach T.O. Somebody spiked on your star.
Ooh, beer catching poncho funnel. That's my next Sky Mall item. You get down, you sit down toward the bottom. You got you befriend some player.
Yes.
He taunts the crowd after the victory, and you just pull out your beer catching poncho funnel.
Yeah. Even better, you start the booze. You're like, hey, T.O., this guy sucks. Boo!
Right,
like everyone starts throwing, throw your beer.
Right. You got one of those old Coors party balls in between your legs. You got the beer poncho funnel held out like Elvis in his cape.
Barrel man, basically.
That's right.
From the Denver
it all
Broncos,
just funnels.
right?
It all
Right.
you flap out like one of those flying squirrels. You flap out, the beer all hits you, funnels back into your party ball, and let's see who's cut off after the second half. Sorry.
That's good business. So they found the guy. They charged him with assault and battery. Jack's spokesman says he's okay. But I'm telling you, I don't know how much time anymore you spend in that part of town. But
that's on Ventura, Studio City.
Basically Ventura and a little in from Laurel. And there are homeless schizophrenics.
What side of Laurel? Sorry.
Toward the hill.
West or east?
Very local.
South of the boulevard.
Yes.
Or toward the hill.
Yes.
Yeah, between Laurel and, I don't know, more. Sorry.
Like
figure it out.
Laurel and Colwood or whatever. But but it is getting, it's high, it's.
By Harvard Westlake?
Well, that's
that
too
area.
far. That's
Okay,
too
okay.
far.
But
But
it's just on the strip.
I know.
And
I used to work at the Flask Liquor there.
Oh,
Actually,
yeah.
I worked at the the McDonald's that used to be just on the other side of Laurel.
I didn't know there was a McDonald's.
Oh, yeah. There's a McDonald's there for 40 years or something, and they just got rid of it. But it was in that whole, where the Trader Joe's
I was going to say Global
blah, blah, blah.
Podcast, the one in the Trader Joe's, still there.
I used to work at the McDonald's there, and I went from the McDonald's to the Flask, which is on the other side. But anyway.
Very local.
Yeah, very local.
The real estate is very expensive for the shops on that
very
street.
expensive.
And there's like the Papyrus or whatever card store on one end and the Starbucks on the other. And it is very intimidating to go shopping over there now.
There's a little fundamental problem here, which is, and I've always kind of said it, like, if you're going to be homeless, what are you doing hanging out with the junkies at Skid Row? Why don't you go to Santa Monica?
Go to the high-end districts.
You don't have a home. Yep. Like, the reason we don't live on Ventura Boulevard or south of Ventura Boulevard in Studio City is the houses there are $1,000 a square foot or more. I mean, they're expensive homes over there. But if money was no object because you have no money as an object, then just go to the safe places. Go to the place where people are more affluent.
Yeah.
Go to the place where you can panhandle more, or you can get a higher grade of, are you going to finish that croissant? It's a little better than you dropped a bagel chip. And go there.
Don't strike the locals, especially the celebrities.
It'd be nice.
Yeah.
House of Nanking. That's right. San Francisco Chinese restaurant. So
I've been there.
They are figuring it out.
Yeah.
They're heading toward Venice and heading toward Santa Monica and heading toward, it's like they're going to Seattle, they're going to Portland, like they're not going to Nebraska. They're figuring out where's the highest real estate in the world. I'll just go there.
Yeah. And it was such a Sophie's choice because I had to get a birthday card and I really wanted an iced tea. And it was, do I want to be screamed at by a man talking to himself or do I have a moment for Greenpeace?
You're going to come to work for that.
But also,
it's too easy.
Hello, naive politicians and homelessness experts that the politicians like to quote, or the LA Times like to quote. The price of housing is not what made this guy ball up his fist and put it into Jack's orbital socket. That's not the price. We only had more abundant housing at a lower cost. It's pushing these people. No. The rent doesn't push people out of the street. It pushed people from that neighborhood to Sun Valley.
He's mentally ill.
Yes, he's mentally ill. These people sleeping on a sidewalk with a fresh load in their pants. They're not people that have jobs, but the job isn't good enough to pay the high rent. I made that decision a million years ago. I lived in a one-bedroom apartment on Laurel Canyon. Same Laurel Canyon, but 3 miles down. Not in a bad neighborhood, not in a good neighborhood, but in a safe, semi-clean, normal neighborhood. And I didn't have any money. I made $7 an hour digging ditches, so I got 2 other dudes. And the conceit was, we'll have 3 dudes live in a one-bedroom apartment because I'd rather do that than live alone in a dicey, dirty, sketchy neighborhood, which I could have afforded, but I didn't want to live in Sunland or Sun Valley or where Panorama City or wherever or downtown or whatever it was back then. So I didn't have any money, but I found a few people and we got an apartment and we made it work. This notion of like the prices are too high. I'm sure that affects a very small group of really specific people that like moved here and lost their job and husband walked out on them or something, but it is not the norm.
Right.
It is not the norm. It's schizophrenia. It's addiction to drugs. It's all. I mean, if you talk to anyone who's lived amongst the homeless or been in that world, they just tell you like how many people are not addicted to drugs. They're like, oh, it's probably 30% aren't addicted to drugs, but those people are alcoholics. Like it's substance abuse and mental illness. It's not housing. It's an insane way to approach. It's like in a way it's a Dr. Seuss way to approach it. Like, well, they're called the homeless, so they have no house.
The home full.
So if they had a home, then they wouldn't be homeless, and then this would solve this problem. No, they were all born into a home. They somehow found their way out onto the streets. It's a subject that's pretty nuanced, but building low-cost housing. Well, by the way, no worse place to build housing than L.A. No tougher putt in terms of permits and land and hurdles you have to clear. So, all right, you've made the toughest thing to do the answer, which doesn't get done.
Right.
Okay. That's why I'm not so hopeful. All right, Gina, let's do one more.
Okay, well...
1.5 more.
Okay, I was going to say, this dovetails nicely, but I'd hate to end on it. If you really want your potholes fixed, like we do here, you may have to host the Olympics. DailyNews.com describes LA's streets and sidewalks as being in such disrepair that we might not be ready to handle the expected influx of 500,000 people. This is for the 2028 games. But City Council is requesting a report on how to fund this. So nearly 40% of the city's streets have fallen have a D or F rating. More than 8,700 lane miles are in need of repair, and the city only recently passed a $1.4 billion plan to fix it.
I know we pulled the plug on the bullet train that everyone knew wouldn't work, or we've shortened the route and it's no longer a bullet train. But what do we do? Get 6 or 15 billion into that thing before we pull the plug? Don't you think that billions of dollars could have gone a long way toward filling some potholes?
Oh, don't worry, they have a plan.
I do love that LA's, in your story you mentioned, the plan is to start a study or start a committee or whatever. Like LA, I may have told a story years ago, but when Christy and I lived in our apartment, it was across the street from Beverly Hills. It was like it was an LA address, but across the street was like a Beverly Hills park. And one morning we woke up to find literally half our street paved. Like the half that was on the Beverly Hills side
one
was
lane
brand
paved and one lane not paved.
It wasn't a lane. It was like, a little side street. And it was like just a side street, no lane, just side street. And it was half the street was unpaved and crappy, and half the street was paved and brand new. It's like that's a perfect encapsulation of LA and all the other nice cities.
Well, you're not going to be shocked to hear how they're going to get this money for the repairs.
We're going to add the tax to the gasoline.
You're very good. The new revenue options that they suggest for Measure M would raise $120 billion over 40 years, as well as a state gas tax, and that's expected to raise $54 billion over the next 10 years.
I believe if we're not the highest, we're amongst the highest gas taxed already. That's why, obviously, when you travel around and you see gallons of gas and it starts with 2 or even 1, you're like, what?
Where are we?
And then you have that stupid naive thought like, well, we're in the middle of Wyoming. How do they get their gas so cheap over here? And it's like, they don't get their gas so cheap. We make ours super expensive with all the regulations and taxes and everything else. So also, does it ever really translate? Like, I don't know, the state lottery system started in 1981, and it's about the time the schools fell off, as far as I can tell, even though that money was all going to the schools. Is there any direct correlation between the lottery? The standardized test scoring is much lower now than it was before we implemented the lottery, where the money went to the schools. I'm not doing a straight line correlation between anything when these guys go, we need more money so the schools. I bet we spent a lot less, even adjusted for inflation, X amount of years ago, and got much better results. So this notion of like, we'll just add 4 cents a gallon, that'll raise billions of dollars, and we'll put that right into the sidewalks and the potholes. I don't know. I got the first part, but I'm not so sure there's a straight line. You may just hire more bureaucrats to make more decisions,
more
and then
reports and more studies.
At some point, we're going to raise the tax, the gas tax again. Also,
I've heard a version of this plan before.
Oh, Dawson. Yeah, sorry. Drunk girl wrote a letter to Dawson, and Dawson read it on the air. So says Gio, or somebody in the know.
Yeah, I just looked it up.
Yeah, so that was. We'll share that with you on tomorrow's show. Yeah. But circle that. All right. So again, my feeling also, I'm literally a millionaire. So the price, the 4 cents or 7 cents or whatever per tank, per gallon of gas makes never mind to me. I'd be happy to pay 50 cents more a gallon if I thought we're going to get these roads taken care of, or the signals synchronized, or any of the stuff taken care of. I'm not so sure any of it gets taken care of. That's my problem. But for the people that are already paying $3.65 a gallon who don't have money, this hits everyone hard.
Yep.
So this is basically like saying we're gonna raise the price of a burrito, or we're gonna raise the price of a pizza or food or whatever it is.
Dude,
I could pay $35 or the equivalent of $35 for a burrito. I wouldn't want to, but I can. It's not going to affect my bottom line. But a poor person,
no more burritos.
It's gonna hit hard. And the gas is, you talk about that stuff. We always talk that big story with the city of like, hey, these rich fat cats, they got to start paying their fair share. And this guy's got commercial office property. He's got to lower his rent. So people of fixed income come in. I get it. That's basically Peter Hood. That's Robin Hood meets fucking Peter Pan. You live in some kind of fairyland where you're perpetually 12 years old and you're Robin Hood at the same time. That's Peter Hood or Robin Pan. That's Robin Pan. So fine.
It's a great morning show.
Have your fucking fantasies about ripping off whatever, but I don't know. How much money did you get out of Toyota? How much money did you get out of Nissan? Oh, that's right. They left the state. So good luck. Yeah. But anyway, I get that stupid argument. At least you could seem like a hero. The gas, that just affects poor people. It does not affect anybody who has a good income. It really affects poor people in a town with no transit, no mass transit.
Yeah.
The guys with the leaf blowers, they got to drive into the nice neighborhoods and fire up that leaf blower.
That's a great point in terms of optics. You are only hitting the group you claim to protect.
Well, only, really. I mean, if you're Jimmy Kimmel, you don't care about an extra 7 cents of gas. And I would bet you he doesn't know what a gallon of gas is.
Or how fast are the number of electric cars, hybrid cars on the rise amongst wealthier people? It's only they're taking themselves out of that market.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
Lynette
cool.
doesn't give two shits about the price she's driving a Tesla X around, right? Or she's probably in a limousine right now, lighting a cigar with $100 bill and laughing with the kids. I told Sonny, I said to Sonny, before we went to Vegas, I was like, listen, man, you're in charge of the room service. Don't let these guys go nuts.
Unplug the phone.
Let them go.
Cut the wire.
Go nuts. Now listen to me. Obviously, you guys are going to be ordering room service, but I need you to eat all of it. Like I need you to keep it down with the room service, but whatever shows up, you eat. It's a $26 pizza. Don't just have one slice and push it out in the hallway. Pack it up.
Yep. Did he seem like he understood, like he was processing?
He did, but I don't trust him.
Yeah.
He's one of these guys who wets his toothbrush. See, I brush my teeth, or take a shower. He wets his hair.
Yeah.
I took a shower. He's one of those guys.
That's what you do.
Yeah, that's what
Shifty.
I wonder where we're going to learn it.
All right, let's do one more.
All right. Well, California isn't the only state that tries to get a little cute with the freeway road signs. I figured I'd bring this up before you get inundated with the tweets. The police department in Haymarket, Virginia, is threatening to call your mom if officers catch you speeding through the town. That's what the sign says. So a flashing sign posted in a 25-mile zone starts off with an expected and easy to ignore slow down or, and then it switches to, we will call your mom. The Haymarket Police Department wrote this on Facebook. They said, we have been receiving many laughs and compliments. We meant this to be funny, but on a serious note, please slow down.
Yeah, it's a weird call. Now, maybe we have it out here where it's ironic because you're going 4.5 knots, whatever the wind is blowing. I just put my car in neutral and let the wind blow it toward my destination. It's a faster, more efficient way to do it. Oh, don't call Chris Carolla.
No, she's not going to be the sympathetic ear you
want. Mom, listen, I was speeding in the Jag, okay?
How would I know that?
Well, that's why I'm calling. I'm calling to tell you, but look, I've a racing license, so I'm qualified.
How should I know?
Well, if you'd followed my career at all, you'd understand that I do some competitive race driving, and I'm quite good at it.
How can you possibly expect me to answer that?
That's Sheck's super uncomfortable laughter, because the fifth time, the premise of the whole reason she was on the air was to answer trivia related to the show.
Fairly basic.
So if you did a thing where you went like, hey, we're going to do a competition with you, Adam, about Game of Thrones trivia, I would answer everyone with, how would I know? Because I don't watch the show.
Yeah.
But if the premise was your son's on the Game of Thrones, so thus you probably watched the show, It was funny. The thing that was always great about that is she would go,
what's your son's best friend's name?
Oh, he's got a few. How dare you? How dare you? Troy is one of them.
I haven't heard a name.
Damon.
Okay.
Troy. No, I'm making them up. There's what's his nose and Spindle Dick and, all of them.
You got it right.
Those goddamn kids spend more time over my. There's Maddie, who's a Matthew. I got to think. There's. God, you just caught me off guard. But those kids spend more goddamn time in my house than my own
it's a pretty unfair question.
I'll figure it out. They're eating my food right now. Believe you me. I know who they are. Anyway, how dare you? She did not. Look, I'm a big celebrity. This kid's a grabby little smart mouth 12-year-old. She did not know any of the answers. Of course, the thing that was sad is Mo Damashek's mom,
doting
from Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, was answering all the questions because she listened online. She streamed it online. Yep. So we weren't even on in the city she lived in, but she still knew all of them. And the thing that's interesting about my mom is she kept saying, how could I possibly know that? And it's like, well, you could easily possibly know it.
There's many radios in your home, in your car.
You could answer, I missed that show, or I didn't listen to that episode, or I don't listen consistently, but you couldn't go, how could I?
Yeah, the premise, or the inflection is, the premise of this question is ridiculous. It's absurd.
Right, that's what makes my
unknowable.
Mom so horrible, which is,
what does Jupiter smell like?
So it's an insane answer because you get up at 6 a.m. and you have a radio in your car and at home.
Well, maybe she was late to work that morning.
At the Chicano Studies Institute.
I hope this makes you feel better in some way. Do you know how many times in the last 4 years my mom will answer something I'm saying with, that reminds me of something from Daddy Stop Talking?
Oh, I love that.
It's her favorite book.
I love that woman.
No.
All right. Do we bring it home?
We'll do it right now. I'm Gina Grad, and that's the news.
Hit the bricks, sister.
Gina Grad.
That was the news with Gina Grad.